What's up, guys? We are back for another week of fights. This time it is UFC Fight Night Columbus, Daukaus versus Blaydes. A pretty fun fight card. I think we got 13 fights currently intact for this weekend. A couple fights that are pretty important for the rankings. Some chalky favorites that we're hoping come through. Probably parlay some of these fights together. Otherwise, it's a tough betting card. A tough card just to call predictions in general. There are some pretty closely lined fights that we'll get into. So without further ado, let's get into the first fight of the night. And the first fight of the night looks to be a featherweight bout between Luis Saldana taking on Bruno Souza. Bruno Souza, we just saw earlier, or maybe late last year, taking on Bagdasarian. Unfortunate first fight for Bruno Souza, who is one of these Team Machida guys. He kind of fights like Machida too. He's got, if you see his fights in the LFA, he's got kind of that wide karate stance, very in and out movement, kind of a backwards moving counter striker. Pretty flashy kicks, pretty effective kicks, and some long looping strikes that reaches opponents from kind of odd angles. So Luis Saldana is very active, and that's kind of why I like Luis Saldana in this fight. 5'11", 31 years old, 73-inch reach, so he's got a 3-inch reach advantage over Bruno Souza. And I like Luis Saldana's activity. His output is very good, especially in his last fight against, who did he fight in his last fight? Austin Lingo. He ended up losing that fight, but he started off very good, looked impressive. He's got nice feints, good in and out movement, effective striking both with his feet and with his hands. He uses his reach pretty well. Very nice, counter hooks, check hooks, things like that. That he just tools that he sets up traps for his opponents to fall into and walk into his effective striking. The issue is especially in his last fight, is kind of where we saw this most effectively, is that he kind of fell off towards rounds 2 and 3, and that's why he ended up dropping the decision to Austin Lingo. However, I don't want to hold it against him too much because, especially like in between rounds, he was his coach had to ice his foot. He broke his foot, I think, on a kick that maybe was hit by an elbow or something like that on Austin Lingo. So Luis Saldana, his output was definitely compromised in rounds 2 and 3. His his ability just to move around and avoid strikes, his in and out movement was definitely compromised by that broken foot. So I don't really want to hold that fall off inactivity against him, but it did happen. So it's something we got to keep in mind. And that's part of why I think this is such a closely lined fight, is because Bruno Souza seems to have a pretty constant activity rate all 3 rounds. The issue is kind of like Machida, his mentor. That backwards movement, that counter-punching movement leads to kind of a low activity rate, so low significant strikes per minute. And moving backwards really just does not a good optic for the judges, in my opinion. So I'm going to slightly favor Luis Saldana. I also think that wide karate base of Bruno Souza, the fact that his strikes kind of come wide and his hands are down, I think he's going to be easily countered by Luis Saldana. Luis Saldana should have more significant strikes per minute in this fight, kind of be the minute winner. And then if he can at least rack up the first 2 rounds against Souza, if he falls off in round 3 and Souza takes that round, he'll still be 2-1, and I think he'll win this fight by decision. Give me Luis Saldana. Minus 120, I think that's aligned pretty correctly. I think that's kind of where this should be. Very close fight. Guys are pretty much the same size, both taller featherweights. Good movement, but I'm going to slightly favor Luis Saldana. Okay, up next, a flyweight bout that I'm looking very much forward to. This should be an all-action war. David Dvorak taking on Nicolau. Again, men's flyweight, 2 guys that are, this is one of the fights I alluded to in the beginning, where it's pretty important for the flyweight rankings here. David Dvorak, pretty well inside the top 15, Nicolau in the top 10. So, it's going to be a momentum shifter for either guy. Whoever comes out on top will start getting the next high-level fights in the top 10 of the division. So, David Dvorak, 3-0 in the UFC so far, 20-3 record overall, 29 years old, 5'5", 68-inch reach. Not that much different from the physical stats of Nicolau, who is 5'6", 66-inch reach. So he's at a deficit of 2 inches on the reach, but also 29 years old and 5-1 in the UFC. So much better resume experience, much better pro record for Nicolau as far as who he's fought so far. Fought some tough guys in the division already, but David Dvorak is so powerful for 125. I mean, he packs heat in his hands. If you watch his regional scene fights from promotions in Europe, he's got a very powerful, quick. I mean, everybody's quick in the flyweight division, but to be quick and then also technically sound in his striking, he's got very nice powerful jab. He'll finish off his jab with like a jab cross right hook combination. He sits down on his punches, and the guys will, even at this 125 division, guys are getting laid out by David Dvorak striking. I mean, he's very, very technical for as fast as he is. I'm also very impressed with his takedown defense and his scrambling ability. Even when he gets scrambled, even though when he gets taken down, he scrambles back up to his feet, never allowing for much control time against him. So I'm very impressed with that, because that is one of the weapons that Nicolau, I believe, is going to sprinkle in to these fights. I mean, if the striking is close, Nicolau definitely has the ability to time the takedowns and win some points there for the round. And I think that might be the difference in this fight. It's a fight that I see as very close, and so do the bookies as well, because this is minus 135. The favorite is David Dvorak, and Nicolau plus 115. So very, very close, near pick'em odds. And that's kind of what's going to lead me to pick Nicolau as the underdog here, just because to get plus money on the guy who's 5-1 in the UFC, he's had some tough tests already that he's managed to pass. Albeit very, very close fight with Manel Kape, who I think is definitely like his biggest win to date. So Manel Kape, he had a split decision win over him. But I think that's kind of, when you're looking at the styles of the fights, that's kind of a guy that's like David Dvorak, as far as Manel Kape's striking is very clean, very precise, very powerful as well. And Nicolau was able to pass that test, hang in up close against Manel Kape, and actually time the takedowns and do just enough to win that fight against him, although it was by the skin of his teeth. But that's a top guy, Manel Kape. I mean, that guy is very, very impressive. He hasn't had a chance to really display his full skills yet in the UFC and in the United States. But, I mean, that was the guy that they actually brought in, Manel Kape, to be the alternate in case the flyweight championship bout fell out in 2020. So, I mean, to pass that test and to be plus money, I'm going to take him. 17-2-1 is Nicolau. Very impressive record, very impressive, just mixed bag of skills. And I'll take him at plus money. Again, granted, this is not a very high confidence pick, but I could see this going David Dvorak's way as well. But for plus money, give me Nicolau to win a close decision here. Okay, up next, I am excited for this women's flyweight bout, 125 division between Manon Fiorot and Jennifer Maia. No, I'm not very excited about Jennifer Maia. I'm more excited about Manon Fiorot. I'm just going to be honest. I think she's going to be the saving grace of this division, this women's flyweight division that's sort of in shambles, with Shevchenko reigning over everybody at the top. Everybody else in the division is kind of just like, on a whole different level. But I think Manon Fiorot, with a little bit of experience under her belt and some of these more bigger names like Jennifer Maia on her resume, I think she's next in line for a title shot in the near future. And I think that's what the UFC is kind of doing here. We're looking at Manon Fiorot, 8-1, a ton of finishes in a row, except for her last fight against Mayra Bueno Silva. She's physically imposing, a very, very bully of a fighter. And she's ranked 13, all the way down at 13. Just busted into the top 15 of the women's flyweight division. Not very hard to bust into that division, I'll have you know. But Jennifer Maia is somehow a plus 340 underdog currently, and number 4 in the division. So that should tell you everything you need to know about what they're trying to do here. They want to have like one of those Tai Tuivasa, Derek Lewis type of flip-flops, where Manon Fiorot flies up the rankings, takes Jennifer Maia's place in the rankings, and is probably going to be fed next in line for Shevchenko. If she can have, maybe between 2 and 3 more very, very decisive wins. But I think she gets one here, because Jennifer Maia just faced Katlyn Chookagian a few months ago, and just a couple months ago, and lost a unanimous decision, a very predictable decision that she lost to a more superior physical athlete, and just somebody who has better striking output. So what you'd want to do to counter like the striking output of either Katlyn Chookagian or Manon Fiorot, you want that wrestling in your back pocket. You want to get them off of their feet and into a territory that they're unfamiliar with, which is fighting off of their back. They can't get that output. But Jennifer Maia does not really possess that ability. She really doesn't have that ability. She doesn't go to that often. She has that one semi-takedown against Shevchenko, where she was able to steal a round of control time, and she did it once against Katlyn Chookagian in their first fight a couple of years ago. But aside from that, she really doesn't go to it. She really doesn't have that ability. I think Manon Fiorot is too physically strong to succumb to any takedowns from Jennifer Maia. You know, maybe if this goes late and Fiorot tires, maybe that'll be, you know, in the worst case scenario, she loses a round of control time to Maia. But Jennifer Maia is not really going to out-grapple her for 3 rounds. She's not going to outstrike her at any of the rounds. She doesn't really have that one-hit power, you know, to have a solid puncher's chance against Manon Fiorot. And Manon Fiorot actually answered that question of, you know, once you see one of those prospects that has like 5 finishes in a row, even at the female division, you have that question, you know, can they sustain that kind of activity over 3 rounds? Well, in her last fight against Mayra Bueno Silva, she definitely answered that. She was able to do it over 3 rounds. You know, even over some control time, she was able to land 91 strikes over 3 rounds. And then before that, just in over 1.5 rounds against Tabitha Ricci, again, a smaller opponent on short notice, but she still landed 84 significant strikes in just over a round and a half, you know, so. And in her last fight, you want to talk about cardio and output, she attempted 291 total strikes, including on the feet and on the ground. So crazy output from Manon Fiorot, very physically imposing, just a bully of a woman at flyweight, and hopefully is the saving grace of this division and gives the champion a challenge. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. She's still ranked only 13. She's a minus 450 favorite currently. I was able to parlay her up with Curtis Blaydes a few weeks ago when she was closer to like minus 300, minus 310, something like that. So that's more reasonable. You know, skill for skill and just on paper, it looks like minus 450. I could argue that, but I mean, come on, she's still ranked 13. The line's getting a little bit crazy. I think she's safe parlay material though, if there is such a thing as that, but Manon Fiorot is the pick here. I don't know if she finishes Jennifer Maia. I don't see that happening, but I see Jennifer Maia getting pieced up in a more vicious fashion than she was even a couple months ago against Chookagian. So give me Manon Fiorot by decision here. Okay, up next, this should be a fun fight as long as it lasts. It is a Russian middleweight special here between Askarov, Khizriev, who was coming off of the Dana White Contender Series of 2020. Just had a lot of bouts fall through. Even this fight on this fight card was had fallen through, but short notice replacement, a fellow Russian by the name of Denis Tiuliulin. Yeah, that's really the guy's name, is Tiuliulin. So I kind of hope he wins his debut here just so that we get a chance to say Tiuliulin as many times as possible. I want to hear all the commentators say it. Amazing name, like 20 vowels in his name. He's a plus 400 underdog here. I think the biggest favorite on the card is currently Khizriev at minus 550. This opened up, for a moment, it opened up slightly closer than this, but I think once people dove into the research and the tape, they saw just the stark difference of skill in this fight everywhere. On the feet, submission, takedowns. Khizriev is 31 years old, 13-0. I think he had one fight as an amateur before he started his 13-0 pro career, which he also won. So on a 14-fight streak, 5'9", 74-inch reach. You know, pretty strong, physically imposing guy for 5'9" at middleweight. He's got very, very good striking, just devastating strikes on the feet, on the ground. And before I saw the Contender Series fight in 2020, I'd totally forgotten about this guy. But I remember seeing one of my, this is maybe a backwards opinion here, one of my favorite middleweights ever was Rousimar Pilares. You know, aside from the fact that he was like kind of a douche in the way that he would hold submissions and he got kicked out of every organization on the face of the earth. But he was my favorite middleweight, and I still keep tabs on him because I thought he was going to beat Anderson Silva back in the day. Well, I remember seeing him get knocked out by a blatant cheater holding the cage, and got out of a heel hook by ripping his way off of the cage, grabbing the cage, punching out Rousimar Pilares, and that guy was Askarov Khizriev. And I had totally forgotten about the guy. I hadn't seen his fights until he came onto the Contender Series in 2020. Devastating first-round submission over a pretty formidable opponent. So this guy definitely got all the goods, and you can see how highly they think of this guy because they were actually going to pair him up with Kyle Daukaus, which fell through, Alessio Di Chirico, which fell through, and even Wellington Turman, which fell through. But you know, they're finally throwing him a short notice replacement. Just get this guy in. He's 31 years old already. You know, came off the Contender Series in his 20s. So let's get this guy in. Denis Tiuliulin, 6'1", 10-5 Russian. So even just on paper, you see a 13-0 versus a 10-5. You dive into Tiuliulin's record, not very good. I mean, I watched plenty of his fights. Very, very poor striking defense. very poor striking technique, very poor takedown defense. I mean, not a whole lot to like about this guy, although he is coming off of a very impressive knockout over a guy with an impressive record, but that guy's record was pretty padded as well. It was an older Brazilian guy. I think he was like 36 years old. And that guy actually landed clean strikes. Even though he had a padded record, not a very good fighter, he landed clean strikes on Tiuliulin that got through the guard. So I'm not very impressed with Dennis's striking defense at all. But he did manage to wear that guy down in the first round and land some devastating like 1-2s down the middle, a nice high kick that then dropped the guy, and he got a nice knockout there. So at least he's riding in to his debut here against a tough Khizriev with a little bit of momentum, but I don't see this going very well. When my only argument for a fighter like Tiuliulin to be a plus 400 underdog is, it's MMA and anything can happen. He's got a puncher's chance like anybody else. When that's my only argument for this guy to be an underdog and win this fight, I got no argument at all. So I'm going with Khizriev. I'm very, very confident in this guy, as I'm sure anybody would be. I don't see any holes in this game in this fight. So give me Aliaskhab Khizriev to win by first round knockout. Okay, up next, a bantamweight bout between Dana Batgarel and Chris Gutierrez. Interesting fight. It should be a banger. It should be a stand-up war. And this is another one of those fights that's lined pretty closely on this card, with Dana Batgarel being minus 150 and Chris Gutierrez the plus 130 underdog. I think that line is actually getting a little bit tighter, a little bit closer to not quite pick'em odds, but I see it going. I see Chris Gutierrez down to like plus 115 in some spots. So, either way, the public and the bookies agree that this should be a pretty close fight. I see arguments for both sides. 135-pound division. Dana Batgarel, 32 years old, 5'7", 70-inch reach, and he is on a 3-fight winning streak, only losing his debut against Healy Alatang, who I'm very fond of. I like that guy. We haven't seen him since the fall, so hopefully he fights soon. But all that aside, after that loss to Healy Alatang, he went on a 3-win streak, all by first-round stoppage. So the guy's very, very powerful with his striking. He likes to push forward, really crowd guys, and that's what he needs to do here against Chris Gutierrez. Chris Gutierrez is the owner of one of the, vicious leg kick TKOs against Vince Morales a while back. So very memorable win there for Chris Gutierrez. Chris Gutierrez has got a lot more experience than Dana Batgarel by probably about 10 or more professional fights, I want to say. 30 years old, so slightly younger, 5'9", slightly taller, and 67-inch reach. So giving up a little bit of reach there, but he's pretty good at closing the distance against his opponents at this weight class. Very long leg reach, especially with those leg kicks. We see that happen. But he's got more tools in the tank than that, and he tends to make fights very, very close with his activity. So he's had some tough fights, definitely, but in the past, he's gone to a lot of split decisions. So he's always either going down to the level of his opponent or leveling up to the higher level opponents that he's faced. So that's part of why I like him as an underdog here. And if I could find a prop for Chris Gutierrez to win by decision in this fight, I might have to check that out. I actually might do that live and see. Let me go on best fight odds and just see what that might be. Because now looking at all of my notes here, Dana Batgarel, again, 3 first-round KOs. Now, Chris Gutierrez has never been finished, shown pretty good durability. So if Dana Batgarel, gets eaten up by some leg kicks after round 1, starts slowing down with his activity, he can be low volume at times. If that knockout does not come in round 1, what's going to happen onward from there? He's 2-2 in decisions, whereas Chris Gutierrez is actually 9-3 in decisions. So a lot of his fights go into decision. Like I said, probably about 5 of those were split decisions among his career, but he's come out the victor, 2 draws as well. So we're talking about, 14 decisions? I mean, in a fight that's going to go to decision, probably be close. And Chris Gutierrez has got the experience, a positive win in decision record, and he's plus money. I mean, that's all just aiming for me to bet Chris Gutierrez by decision in this bout. Let's see here. What was I doing looking for Chris Gutierrez by decision? Fight goes to decision is actually plus, that can't be right. That's plus money on best fight odds. Chris Gutierrez by decision. There's no way that still exists at plus 200. Well, I'll have to check and make sure that these, that looks very juicy. I'm going to write that down. Plus, we're looking at north of plus 200 for Chris Gutierrez by decision. I don't know. I mean, that seems too good to be true in a way. because now that I'm talking myself into it based on both of their win, mostly the win condition of Chris Gutierrez, but again, he's shown pretty good durability. So, Dana Batgarel could easily come in here and crowd the kicker and definitely tee off on him and get the finish. But so far, we haven't seen that happen to Chris Gutierrez yet. We haven't seen Dana Batgarel really have to combat somebody with this kind of veteran experience and a leg kicker in this way. So we have yet to see where Batgarel can. Just looking at his wins, they're not very impressive compared to the competitors that Chris Gutierrez has faced. So yeah, for now, I've really talked myself into it live on video. I think I might be looking at that prop for Chris Gutierrez by decision. That'll be the bet for this fight, and I think at plus money you could do a lot worse in a close fight. Okay, up next is still the bantamweight division, 135, but this time it is the women. Sarah McMann, Grandma McMann, 41 and a half years old, taking on the young and upcoming Carol Rosa, 27 years old, 5'5", 67 and a half inch reach for Carol Rosa. McMann, not that much difference in size here, 5'6", 66 inch reach. Sarah McMann, Grandma McMann, a 12-6 record. She's pretty much faced everybody. Kind of been a sub or B-subbed fighter recently, with the way that her cardio kind of falls off, and she's fallen victim to a couple submissions herself. But, credentialed wrestler, that's where her background stems from, what she started in. When Carol Rosa was 9 years old, Sarah McMann was winning a silver medal in the Olympics in 2004. So it just goes to show you how long she's been doing this. Definitely a veteran of the game. But I think the game has definitely passed her by, and she's so low volume. If she's not grappling or gunning for the wrestling, the takedown, fishing for a submission, she's not really doing much in the fight, and she falls apart without really landing much volume at all. So you mark that against Carol Rosa, who's, if you just to read off some of the total strikes in these 3-round fights she's had, 125 total strikes against Betch Correa, 57 against Jocelyn Edwards, with 4 takedowns in there. 120 against Vanessa Mello. Laura Procopio, she racked up 171. So not the highest level of competition yet, but if you just look at the potential she has at 27 years old, this is definitely kind of the UFC, the sacrificial lamb of Grandma McMann to Carol Rosa, just trying to give her a little bit of name credibility on her resume as she moves up the division. And it's just a total flip-flop of one fighter. Sarah McMann is downward trajectory as far as her career goes. This is probably one of the last times we'll see her. And Carol Rosa, definitely on the upward trajectory, going towards becoming kind of a household name in the bantamweight division for the women here. So definitely probably somebody who's going to be challenging the upper echelon of the division, maybe for a belt at some point in the future. Only 27 years old, and she's got to pass this veteran test, but I see it going pretty well for her. Give me Carol Rosa to win. Even though Grandma McMahon's been finished a lot, I don't see a huge submission threat from Carol Rosa, so give me Rosa by decision. As far as the odds go in this fight on the money line, we're looking at minus 210 currently for Carol Rosa and plus 175 underdog price of McMann. I pretty much agree with that price because although I'm pretty high on Carol Rosa winning this fight, pretty confident in that pick, there's still a big gap in experience here, of course, from Sarah McMann, who's been there and done that in the fight game in women's MMA. But we're looking at just north of about, high 60, 70% chance on the money line, implied odds that Carol Rosa wins. I'd say that's just about right. Anything past that, you're really just disrespecting the experience of McMann. But I do think Rosa wins, and I'm pretty confident in that. At the top of the prelims is Neil Magny versus Max Griffin in the welterweight division. Interesting enough fight here, especially taping and looking at these guys is reminding myself of these guys' styles because they kind of are just different versions of each other. What I mean by that is I think that Neil Magny and Max Griffin kind of fight similarly, but Neil Magny just does everything better. He does everything better against better people, and he's just built more impressively for 170. 6'3", 80-inch reach, 34 years old. Max Griffin just a little bit shorter, a little bit less reach, a little bit older. And just a little bit worse. I mean, it fights worse competition, in my opinion. Well, it's not even an opinion. It's just plain old fact. We kind of see the ceiling with where Max Griffin was. He had to kind of fight off he had lost like 4 of his last 5 fights at a certain point before beating Ramis Brahimaj, Kenan Song, and, washed up Carlos Condit. And that's where he currently is on a 3-fight win streak. So not bad. But Neil Magny, we've seen that he is able to, Max Griffin he beats a certain level of opponent and that's it. Neil Magny can go into that upper echelon, the top 5 of the division, and hang with those guys and beat most of them, not all of them, but most of them. And he has like double the UFC fight experience. By the numbers, activity-wise, on paper, like significant strikes landed per minute, Max Griffin actually beats out Neil Magny by like a significant strike, but again, it's against lesser competition, and it's against half the sample size of Neil Magny's career in the UFC. So, I think Neil Magny has the physical advantages and just the experience to win this fight. He knows how to win fights. This fight, I like fight goes to the decision here, and out of, a ton of fights, Neil Magny is 15-2 in decisions, whereas Max Griffin is 7-7. Total coin flip when it comes to decisions. So against those upper echelon guys, Max Griffin just cannot hang. I think that'll be the case here. We're talking minus 240 on the money line for Neil Magny, plus 195 the comeback underdog price on Max Griffin. I just can't make enough of an argument going through it to take the underdog shot here on Max Griffin. Just physicality-wise, age-wise, and just experience and just game plan. I just can't do it. I also like the fact that along with Curtis Blaydes, we've got Neil Magny, who I believe is still at Team Elevation MMA out of Denver. So I like that. I like his cardio, and I like the fact that he's at least got somebody else with him here in the main event spot. High-level competitors. A lot of high-level people have come out of that gym. They seem to have good game plans for fights. So give me Neil Magny. Like I said, I like him by decision. I like fight goes to decision. I think both there's some pretty good value on. Okay, up next, a banger of a fight at 155, lightweight division, is Mark Diakese versus Vyacheslav Borshchev. And I'm happy to see Vyacheslav Borshchev get back into the octagon so quickly. I know he just got that first round knockout over Dakota Bush. A little bit of a sketchy first round, but he got the job done with his crafty striking as usual. And that same body shot is going to be open on Mark Diakese, honestly. So Mark Diakese, plus 135 underdog. This line is closed up a bit now. Minus 155 favorite, Vyacheslav Borshchev. That's a little bit more of an appropriate price, honestly, because this opened up at like minus 150 for Vyacheslav Borshchev as the favorite, which is crazy enough over a guy in Mark Diakese with so much experience under his belt compared to Borshchev. But the line like skyrocketed all the way up to like close to minus 200 for Borshchev, which I thought was a little bit ridiculous, too much of a steamed line there, but now just earlier today, it's even come down, back down to like minus 155. So God only knows where this line's going to end up by fight day on Saturday, but either way right now, I think the price is more appropriate. But either way, 6-1 Vyacheslav Borshchev coming off of like 3 straight finishes. This guy is a bully, man, a bully at 155. He's pretty tall, 5'11", 69-inch reach. A little bit shorter reach than Mark Diakese, 73-inch reach. He's got those long limbs. 29 years old, actually, shockingly the younger man for as much experience as Diakese has. But he's on a 2-fight losing streak against, Rafael Alves and Rafael Khizriev. No shame there, but I see this fight being, not to compare Rafael Khizriev to Borshchev just yet. I'm not making that leap, but I see this fight being very similar in the way that Borshchev is going to be the bully. He's going to push Diakese on his back foot, where Diakese usually doesn't get off that crafty striking. He's got crafty striking of his own. Doesn't have as many tools in his arsenal. I don't think we've seen as Borshchev, but he is very, very crafty with his striking when he's able to stalk his opponents, back them up, and be the bully himself. But as we saw against Rafael Khizriev, again, I'm not comparing Khizriev to Borshchev just yet, but I think in the way that they fight, pressure fighters, stalking down their prey, and that's really when they do their best work. Now, Mark Diakese, I have seen him, be able to land some pretty quick counters. He'll jab his way, as he's approaching his opponents, he'll jab his way into a nice overhand right. He's also thrown that powerful overhand right as a counter as he's being backed up. I've seen him drop guys with that too. But he's never been finished, and Vyacheslav Borshchev is on a finishing spree. So I think the fight goes to decision or fight doesn't go to decision line is a little bit confused because, one guy in Borshchev is really contributing to the under, and one guy in Diakese is really not contributing so much to that under. He's a guy that will go to his wrestling quite a bit, and he could definitely win minutes there. But personally, I'm not going to get in the way of Vyacheslav Borshchev, who I think is just such a crafty fighter. He's a team alpha male athlete. He's a guy who's probably drilling the wrestling nonstop, gets back to his feet. And either way, I'm not going to bet on Mark Diakese, who seems to be one of these wrestle-heavy guys, complete mixed martial artist that has fallen in love with the power because he has had some pretty good striking finishes in his career. Haven't seen it in a while. He's in a bit of a slump, but I think that he is one of those guys where he could go to the wrestling, probably going to be like a clear path. Probably the better path, instead of standing and striking with Borshchev here, is to get those takedowns. But he's going to be one of those guys where you're going to be screaming at your TV if you bet on him, begging him to get the takedown and go for it. Maybe he'll sprinkle it in and catch a kick at the end of the round when it's too late to do so and win minutes, and the round is already lost for him. So that's how I see this playing. I'm not going to bet on Diakese as an underdog to win minutes, even though I think he could easily do that. I'm not going to bank on him to make that smart decision in the fight and do that. So I think Borshchev wins this fight. I think he's going to win. You know, even though we haven't seen Diakese finish that way by strikes, I think Borshchev could hang with a decent pace for at least 2 rounds out of 3 and win the striking exchanges. Even though Diakese's a kickboxer himself, I think, like Khizriev showed the clear game plan and the path to victory, you can lower Mark Diakese's guard by just hammering those body kicks over and over. You know, Rafael Khizriev had very good success with that. Borshchev employs a lot of body kicks, a lot of knees up the middle into his game, and I think that's how he wins this fight, either by finish or decision. So I think the line is a lot better where it is, -155 Borshchev. I do like it. Okay, this fight right here might be the trap of the card. I don't know, man. This is a tough one. This is Alexei Oleinik, the oldest fighter on the roster, I'm pretty sure he has to be, versus Latifi at heavyweight. Alexei Oleinik, the first guy, I think, to actually have an MMA bout across 4 decades. I want to say he was the first one to do that. I think Alistair Overeem was the first to get a win across all 4 decades, but Alexei Oleinik was the first one to officially compete across all 4 decades in the 90s through the 2020s. So he's still active, 6'2", 80-inch reach, super long limbs. He's 44 and 3 months away from being 45 years old. 59 wins, 16 losses, 1 draw. The guy's just done it all, man. I mean, he's got all the experience in the world, very, very high-level submission artist. And this is where I think it feels like a trap. I mean, the guy's plus 160 on the money line. Latifi minus 190. Latifi is 15-8, and he is no young guy himself, man. He's 38 years old. The second half of 38, almost 39. Alexei Oleinik is coming off of 3 losses, but Latifi could be coming off of 4, man. I mean, that Tanner Boser fight was super close. I held myself an Latifi ticket, and I was about to rip it to shreds because I thought he lost that fight against Tanner Boser. Had a lot of control time, did nothing with it. I didn't know how the judges would see that one. Very, very, very sketchy split decision. So, Latifi, you know he's going to fall right into the trap. He's going to take this fight to the ground. That's what he knows how to do, is get takedowns. But he plays around inactively on top so much that I just feel like Alexei Oleinik could, invite the takedown, invite the position, and just kind of rest and just stay safe, stay away from the big power shots on top from Latifi, and find a submission at some point. I wouldn't be very surprised. But if you want to go that route, and Alexei Oleinik, if you're going to play that side, you would definitely probably play the submission prop, but that's only plus 350, and I don't know, to turn plus 160 underdog to plus 350 on the submission, I need more money on the submission prop for a guy who's about to be 45 years old. So that's off the table. I'm at first thought when I'm looking at the charts here, I'm just like, wow, a guy that's the oldest guy in the roster on a 3-fight losing streak. This should be like, you should hammer the bet on Latifi, but I just can't, man. The guy's not that active on top. He's going to be in the most dangerous position in the fight against him from Oleinik's submission game. He's going to be on top, just kind of, not having that much activity. So I think my prediction for this fight, just because of the age, is going to be Latifi to somehow win this inside the distance. But That's only because, Latifi has not had a finish by strikes since 2016. But the likelihood of him doing it against Oleinik, whose durability and cardio is shot, seems to be a little bit high, just because 4 of his last 5 losses have all come by way of TKO. So I could see Ilir Latifi. I've got a sinking feeling that Ilir Latifi will get a TKO win here. That'll be my official prediction. Betting wise, this is a pass for me. It does look safe on paper. It looks safe to have Ilir Latifi, the guy with better cardio, and the younger guy by a decent margin, to take out Oleinik here. But man, I don't know. If I start parlaying things together in like a PRP fashion, Latifi might be towards the bottom personally. So proceed with caution in this fight. I just have a weird feeling. Maybe people are more confident in Ilir Latifi than I am, but I think after the Tanner Boser fight and before that fight, which was a very close fight, he was on a 3-fight losing streak anyways. So I don't know, man. Alexei Oleinik is dangerous, so taking this guy down, grappling with him, it's going to be playing with fire, I think. So the pick is Ilir Latifi by TKO, but, I don't have a whole lot of evidence to back that up, nor do I have a lot of confidence in it. Okay, speaking of fights that are very important for the rankings in the UFC, this one is up next. Men's flyweight, Kai Kara-France stepping up to take Askarov. Yeah, this is a guy, Askarov is like number 2 in the rankings, I want to say, outside of the champion, and Kai Kara-France is burst all the way up to number 6, I think, officially in the rankings. So I'm pretty sure those are correct right now, but either way, they're neck and neck. It's a very competitive division now that Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno just seem to have this endless rematch streak going on. I heard rumors that they were going to do a 4th one, so I'm not sure if that was 100% confirmed, but either way, it leaves time for kind of like a power vacuum in the division. So a lot of guys are going to be, now that nobody's facing either of those two for like the past 2 years, they can fight each other and really solidify who's the top contender. But all that aside, both guys are pretty young. 29 for Askarov, and Kai Kara-France is 28 years old. Undefeated record for Askarov, 14-0 with the draw to Brandon Moreno, which was a dicey fight. But in hindsight, not looking too bad. He took the current champion to the former champion to a draw. Now, he got hurt a couple times in that fight. He's not afraid to trade in the pocket. If you even watch, he doesn't have any TKO finishes in the UFC, but if you watch an ACB where he was champion in Russia in the flyweight division, he has power in both hands, and he trades in the pocket with guys pretty fearlessly. He's got very, very good technical boxing, in my opinion, more than you would expect from a guy who's like one of these Russian grapplers. He doesn't look very awkward when he transitions from the striking to try to get the fight to the ground. He looks very smooth because he's okay to trade with guys pretty fearlessly in the pocket, like I said. And then when the time presents itself, either he hurts the guy, wobbles him, or he just switches so quick, grabs the hip, grabs the body lock, very powerful takedowns, traps up the feet and the legs the way that Khabib would do against the cage to nullify his opponents from getting a base and standing back up. So a guy like Kai Kara-France, who's had pretty good success in stopping takedowns in the past, he's got like probably, what does he have? He's got like almost a 90% takedown defense rating, does Kai Kara-France so far. But he can be controlled when he's taken down there, and this is just a whole level, another level of animal in Askarov, in my opinion. I think he will get taken down, and it will get tested here. So for Kai Kara-France's sake, he would hope that he is able to dominate some of the striking exchanges, for the majority of each round before those takedowns happen. Coming off of a couple clean knockouts, the one against Rogerio Bonser at the end of the round, and then the one against it's still, even though it's Cody Garbrandt and people say his chin is made of glass and things like that, that's still a very impressive win. You're talking about a former champion that he beat, so I'll give him credit there. Pretty impressive win streak he is on. Now, he's also got like more experience in the cage too, 23-9 versus the 15 fights of Askarov. A little bit more reach, 69-inch reach, so he's got a 2-inch reach advantage over the taller man in Askarov. But I'm pretty confident in Askarov to win this fight. He's a minus 365 favorite, though, currently, is the problem with that, because now you're leaving Kai Kara-France plus 280. I see plus 300 out there, so you're talking about like a high 70% chance that Askarov should win this fight. I think that leaves some value on the side of France. And even though we've seen Askarov hurt very few times, I mean, the power that France possesses, and if Askarov is willing to trade in the pocket with them, I mean, I think there's more of a chance than the line would indicate that he would get, he could actually really, really hurt Askarov in this bout if they trade. But I think Askarov is enough of a high IQ fighter. I think he's going to take the path of least resistance, get this fight to the ground when he needs to. He's very, very fast, as most of these top flyweights are, but I just think the grappling is going to be too much for France. But if you were going to take France, it's dangerous in a flyweight fight to bet somebody like a knockout prop or something like that. I'm sure inside the distance you could get, but is he going to submit Askarov? No. If he wins inside the distance, you're probably going to favor the KO TKO prop, which I've seen all the way up as high as plus 700. I wouldn't hate it if you're really convicted of the France side. You'd have to ask yourself, if you're on the France side, you'd have to ask yourself, do you see enough value on that money line to think that he could win by decision in this fight? Would he win a 3-round fight? You're assuming that he could avoid the takedown for at least like 3 minutes of each round, or just avoid it altogether, for 2 of the rounds. I just don't see that happening. I'm pretty confident in the wide array of skills and the ability to mix them together from Askarov. Give me Askarov to win a pretty clear-cut 3-round decision. Okay, I'm pretty excited for this welterweight bout between Matt Brown and Bryan Barbarena. Now, I've done a lot of shitting on the older people on this card, as I normally do, but this time I probably won't be. Matt Brown is 40 years old. I think he might have turned 41 earlier this year, so I think he's 41 because last year, when he turned 40, he beat Diego Lima, knocked him out cold, and really prolonged his career and showed the young guys why he's still there, why he's Matt the Immortal Brown. Now, this guy is kind of a killer-be-killed fighter recently. Not a lot of finishes, not a lot of fights going to decision. A lot of finishes, either he's going down or his opponent is. So out of 41 professional mixed martial arts fights for Matt Brown, 34 have finished inside the distance. Bryan Barbarena is kind of the same way. I mean, he's just physically, they're about the same. Matt Brown has a few inches of reach on him, but both 6 foot tall, pretty tall welterweights here. Bryan Barbarena, the younger guy at 32 years old, but 15 out of 24 of his fights have finished inside the distance as well. Now, I don't think Matt Brown has been to decision outside of that Carlos Condit loss. I don't think he's been to a decision since Johnny Hendricks back in 2015, if memory serves me right here. So, very powerful elbows, very powerful. He's not afraid to trade in the pocket. Very powerful hands this guy has, Matt Brown. And I don't think that power is going anywhere at 40 years old, 41 years old. He's, and it's kind of relevant that this fight night is in Columbus, Ohio. I'm not sure if it's originally where Matt Brown is from. It might be, but he's done most of the training in the second half of his career in the Columbus area. He was declining, losing some fights, and then he ended up going to not only Westside Barbell, which is a powerlifting gym originally, but one of the former Westside Barbell members, Marcus Marinelli, actually started in Columbus, Ohio, Strong Style MMA, which is where Jessica I trains. Most notably, their poster boy is Stipe Miocic, one of the greatest heavyweights ever, came out of that gym, and they credit a lot of their success to that just crazy strength and conditioning program that they partner with at Westside Barbell. So a lot of cardio work, a lot of just things just harden the fighters and make them able to withstand some of these wars. And that's probably what prolonged Matt Brown's career into now his early 40s. So I know he kind of does his own thing. I think he's got his own operation that he trains out of, but it's still in the area. I'm sure he's still getting work in with those guys at his former gym. So slight hometown advantage probably for Matt Brown here. The money line is complete pick'em odds. This is -110 for Matt Brown, -110 for Bryan Barbarena. And I think it belongs there, honestly. This is kind of a 50-50 fight in a way. I think experience-wise, not the cleaner striking per se, but I think the more damaging and more technical striking of Matt Brown, and just the fact that he does have that slight hometown advantage here, I think that's what's going to edge me towards the side slightly for Matt Brown. The age is still a factor. The fact that he gets finished almost as often as he gets the finishes these days is a problem as well. Both guys don't really tend to do too well in decisions these days, so I like fight doesn't go the distance. If anything, that's kind of a cheeky look here that is still pretty cheap if you look at the bookies, if you look at the props, like on Bet Online, Bovada, it's still pretty cheap. The under 2.5 and the fight does not go. So I'm looking at that to cover both sides, but I do like Matt Brown on the money line here at -110. I think there's still a little bit of, not a little bit of value, I'd say. Like I said, I think it's a 50-50 fight, but you're not really, you're not risking a whole lot against, if you're looking at, you're not risking a whole lot at a 41-year-old Matt Brown. I'll just put it that way. I think he has the tools to win this fight. I think it's likely, and I'll take him to win. Not a high confidence pick. Like I said, I prefer the fight does not go in this bout. Okay, returning to the women's flyweight division at 125, we've got Joanne Wood taking on Alexa Grasso. Alexa Grasso, the younger woman here, 28 years old, should be steadily improving, 5'5", 66-inch reach. Similar physical stats for Joanne Wood, the older woman at 35 years old, 5'6", 65.5-inch reach, so almost equal in the tail of the tape. Joanne Wood was a kickboxer by trade before MMA. Both girls are Invicta veterans. Joanne Wood's been there, done that. She's pretty much only lost and fought recently. Most of her losses come to former title challengers or former champions themselves. She's 15-7. Alexa Grasso so far 13-3. Just getting her first kind of big bouts in the UFC. She's coming off of a nice 2-fight win streak over Ji-Yeon Kim and Macy Barber. And the Esparza fight was actually pretty close as well. So, so both of these girls are former strawweights as well. I like Alexa Grasso's striking a little bit more, although it's mostly just her hand speed in the boxing realm. She's pretty good in the pocket. She's got pretty good counters. It could be a little bit predictable of stand-up at times, but, it's good enough, and I think it's improving at 28 years old. But I'm curious to see how she does against Joanne Wood, somebody who's got such a veteran savvy when it comes to the striking. Joanne's pretty good at staying active on the feet, pretty good at lateral movement, getting out of harm's way, and things like that. So it's going to be a tough test for Alexa Grasso for sure. A little bit far cry from Macy Barber on the feet, I would say. 35, especially at women's flyweight, you're definitely pushing the upper limit of the age there, but she's done pretty well for herself so far, Joanne Wood. And I don't really get the line for this fight. I know Alexa Grasso's coming off of 2 wins, and Joanne Wood's coming off of a couple of losses, I believe, to Tyler Santos, and then that close fight against Lauren Murphy that really could have gone either way, in my opinion. Split decision there. So I don't get the line because Joanne Wood's currently a plus 185 underdog. Alexa Grasso minus 225 favorite. It just seems like all the experience, it's kind of a newer fight for Alexa Grasso in a lot of ways, where this is like probably the biggest challenge. So even though they're different in terms of like the momentum coming into this fight, that might be playing into the biased odds here, in my opinion, unless there's something that I'm just not seeing. But pretty close in the rankings too. Joanne Wood ranked 7th right now. Not that these matter that much, but Alexa Grasso is number 9. So just showing the trajectory. It looks like, Joanne Wood's on her way out, Alexa Grasso on the way in. But I think this fight's going to play out a lot closer, especially if it plays on the feet for the majority of the fight. I think it plays out a lot closer than, minus 225 favorite for Alexa Grasso. For that reason, I would not blame anybody for putting their money on Joanne Wood. Maybe even by decision here. You could probably get a juicy number on Wood by decision. I wouldn't hate that at all. I think that's actually where the value, as a value better, I think that's where it lies, is on Joanne Wood. But just a gut feeling, optics, the ability, the unwritten ability to improve at 28 years old versus us probably seeing the finished product in Joanne Wood. I'm going to take Alexa Grasso to win this fight. I think she optically will do enough with, kind of the more damaging shots, the more eye-catching shots. I think she's just younger, physically strong enough. Although Joanne Wood's cardio is held up pretty good. She's able to put a lot of striking output on her opponents for being 35 years old, again at 125. Her cardio seems to check out. So that also contributes to why I think that this is going to be kind of a closer fight than the odds indicate. But for the sake of a prediction, I'll pick Alexa Grasso, the younger, more woman with more potential to improve. But I think the line is way off. I think this should be closer to a pick'em fight, dare I say. But give me Alexa Grasso to win this fight. Okay, we've made it to the main event of the evening. This is Curtis Blaydes taking on Chris Daukaus. And for a heavyweight fight, this line is terrifyingly wide because it's currently minus 400 Curtis Blaydes, plus 300 the underdog Chris Daukaus. It makes sense, I'll be honest, but it's still terrifying that anybody at this level in the heavyweight division can be a minus 400 favorite. This opened up closer to minus 300. I actually parlayed up. I guess we'll spoil this right away. I'm taking Curtis Blaydes. It shouldn't be a big surprise, but I parlayed up Curtis Blaydes and McMann Fiorot quite a long time ago and got closer to that minus 300 number on Blaydes. You know, if you're going to parlay them up, I would do it now because this line would probably be closer to like minus 500 plus come fight time. But it makes sense. If you look at Curtis Blaydes, you hear the name Curtis Blaydes, I personally don't think of like the top heavyweight in the division, but he's always in that mix. I mean, the guy has only lost 3 times and only lost to 2 individuals. One is Derek Lewis, which in my opinion was a fluke, and twice to Francis Ngannou. One was a doctor stoppage. So it's actually impressive the way that he's been able to rack up silently, quietly behind the scenes, such a big kind of impressive resume. You're talking about guys, win over Jairzinho Rosenstrike, Alexander Volkov, Junior Dos Santos towards the end of his career, Shamil Abdurakhimov before that guy was like 50,000 years old, Alistair Overeem with vicious ground and pound, Mark Hunt, Alexei Oleinik way back before he was, again, 50,000 years old like he is now. But it's a hugely impressive resume. And then you look at Chris Daukaus, who was kind of like a streaking prospect in the division before his loss to Derek Lewis in December. But what was that over? That was over Parker Porter, Rodrigo Nascimento, Alexei Oleinik, kind of more of the aged version of Alexei Oleinik, and the aged version of Shamil Abdurakhimov, who was already like 40 at the time he got knocked out. So the resumes just are clearly different. Also, what's incredibly different is the fact that Chris Daukaus actually only weighed in at 235.5 pounds against Derek Lewis just in December. So he's going to be closer to the lighter end of the spectrum here at heavyweight, whereas Curtis Blaydes weighed in at 261 pounds against Jairzinho Rosenstrike. So, Curtis Blaydes kind of more of the natural heavyweight. If you look at Chris Daukaus, kind of the spare tire on the midsection, a sloppy guy. I really was surprised. I almost forgot that he only weighed 235.5 pounds for his last fight. That's actually goofy. The guy looks like he's a lot fatter than that. But 6'3" for Chris Daukaus, 6'4" for Curtis Blaydes. Blaydes with a 4-inch reach advantage. Both guys very young, and Curtis Blaydes, another shock. He's only 31 years old as well, so been able to accomplish quite a bit. His durability has been called into question, I'll be honest, but like I said, he's only lost to the 2 hardest hitters in all of heavyweight history, basically. There have been some close calls, though. I mean, the thing that I called a fluke against Derek Lewis, and I might be a bit bitter because last February when that happened, that was my biggest betting loss currently to date in my entire short betting career. I kind of went all in on, well, not all in, but I went very, very heavy on Curtis Blaydes to win that fight. And as happy as I was to see, Derek Lewis land a highlight reel KO, it was pretty bad on the bankroll, I'll say that. So, but I would probably make that bet again. I think that was one of those, if you play that fight back, 10 times, I think that that uppercut that Derek Lewis landed on Curtis Blaydes was maybe 1 or 2 out of those 10 times. So we kind of saw the outlier on that one. But we saw it happen almost again in September against Jairzinho Rosenstrike when Curtis Blaydes once again rushed in for a kind of a predictable takedown like his opponents trained for, and he got flying kneed. And if that flying knee was just a couple inches lower on his chin, that fight would have been over and it would have been a loss. But luckily it landed on his eye, swelled up his eye. He was able to fight through it. But I hope that he's kind of mixing up his game plan a little bit here, maybe making those, hiding those takedowns a little bit better. I mean, obviously the guy will get takedowns in this fight. Chris Daukaus has a puncher's chance, though, like anybody at heavyweight. He's got fast hands, as we've seen in his impressive streak he's had against these lower-level talents, but he does have fast hands. Being 235 pounds lets him be a little bit more mobile, and he does have a high-level black belt in jiu-jitsu in his back pocket. Not that but I think that the physicality of Curtis Blaydes will be a little bit too much for him to use that black belt. I don't see him submitting Curtis Blaydes if Curtis Blaydes is on top of him. So, but crazy things do happen. But I think that plus 300 line that he's at right now is pretty accurate, but just because of the high variability potential at heavyweight, and Curtis Blaydes with a little bit of maybe questionable durability, that does scare me, him being such a high minus 400 favorite here. But I will take Curtis Blaydes to win. Rinse, repeat takedowns. I think his cardio is better. And when I actually look at a different point of view for this, when you look at, this is a fair fight. I mean, both guys, this is a good matchup, a good step up for Chris Daukaus. He does deserve the step up. I mean, there's not a whole lot of open spots here in the top 10 heavyweight division. Not a lot of matchups to make. We're seeing a lot of guys kind of circling around each other, and maybe a bunch of rematches about to happen. But who does the UFC really want to win this fight? Chris Daukaus, is he going to compete at the upper echelon of heavyweight against some of these guys? I mean, it would be a good matchup. I just think he's outsized. Like, when I say good matchup, it would be like at least a fresh blood in the top 5 of the heavyweight division, new matchups to make. But Curtis Blaydes, I think, is the guy that we would really want to see be competitive in the top 5 again. I mean, do we really want to see a rematch of him against Ngannou? Maybe not, but at least he's got the high cardio potential. He's got the ability to go 5 rounds, which a lot of these heavyweights don't have, and he's got the elite wrestling. And he's not too bad with his strikes either. His vicious ground and pound, like I mentioned before, against Alistair Overeem, very impressive there. And I think that's kind of how he ends up winning this fight. I think he drags Chris Daukaus late in the fight, rounds 3, 4, or 5, and I think he does get a ground and pound victory here. So I'm going to take Curtis Blaydes. I'm pretty invested in it. I do have him parlayed up, like I said, with Manon Fiorot on this bout. So, we just have to suck it up and hope for the best with that minus 400. If I do have more parlays added to that Manon Fiorot, Curtis Blaydes one, if I add on to that, make a 4-leg, 6-leg, at least Chris Daukaus will end up being, by the end of fight week, like a plus 350 underdog. That'd be easy to hedge out, easy to kind of guarantees a win either way if your parlays are live up into that main event. So give me Curtis Blaydes. Pretty highly confident on this pick over Chris Daukaus. And there you have it. There's UFC Columbus fight night this weekend. After this weekend, we do have a break of a week before the next pay-per-view. So it'll give us some extra time to really dig into the research for that big pay-per-view card and come in with some sharp reads. So, all right, thank you guys for watching. Leave a comment on your most confident picks. If you disagree with me, agree with me, I want to hear about it. So, thanks for watching. Leave a like, a sub, and good luck in all your betting action this weekend. Cheers.